So I understand you were born and raised in St. Louis. Is that right?
Correct. In Webster Groves.
Okay, so is that
It's
like a suburb?
it's a suburb, yes.
So what was it like growing up for Jan Buckingham in St. Louis?
Well, I was very sheltered. I found out once I was in college, I mean in high school, they did a TV show called 16 in Webster Groves, and I found out that my that Webster Groves was one of the top 10 suburbs in the United States. But I didn't know that growing up. I lived in a little brick house, and I was pretty sheltered. I was a little cheerleader for a while, and I had a nice time in high school. And then I went to college over in Columbia, Missouri, University of Missouri.
So you didn't go too far away for your education then.
No,
Yeah. So my wife has family that derives from the St. Louis area as well. I think one of her grandmothers was from St. Louis, and so yeah, I was interested about that. What are some
yeah.
lessons you learned from your folks that you still kind of hold true today?
Well, great. My father always said, do the best you can all day, go home and forget it. And that is great advice because
Yeah.
you can't beat yourself up if you're doing the best you can. And my mother always said, it never hurts to ask.
Okay.
So I always, if you want to raise, you ask. You wouldn't ask, why are you so fat or something like that. But if you ask the other kind of things, it's good. So that was the best advice I'd ever gotten was from my parents. And they made me, always be honest and work hard.
I love that from your mom because that probably really suited you well in Nashville, having to network all the time and meet people and stuff. It probably really helped you to ask a lot, huh?
Well, it did, and I like one time when I got a cut with Bob Montgomery. He used to be in the Crickets with Buddy Holly, and then he had House of Gold Music, where I was signed before we went over to Warner Chapel. And one time I had a song, and I lived on a farm with my second ex husband out in Lebanon, Tennessee, and I drove in early in the morning and sat in the little church pew chair outside his office waiting for Bob to come in because I knew he'd come to his office before he went to the studio to cut. And I
Yeah.
had the cassette in my hand. And when he walked in the door, I jumped up and put the cassette right in front of his face and said, Bob, here's money in the bank. And he took it and laughed and went, okay, honey. And he did cut it. So I think that was my Jeannie Fricky cut. I can't remember what it was, but it was a long time ago. So I always kind of asked that way confidently as if
Yeah.
I knew it was a hit.
And I hear that a lot in Nashville too. Like networking is so important and meeting people and hitting the bricks
Oh,
and
yeah.
knocking on
Yeah.
doors and
And,
hitting the
and the golden
venues.
rule, yeah, the golden rule my parents taught me, do unto others as you have them do unto you. So I try to be
Hmm.
really nice to everybody because I want them to be nice to me.
Right, exactly. So, thinking back, what were some of your first musical memories that you can remember as a kid?
Oh my gosh. When I was 8 years old, I wrote my first song, Oh Sad Little Bluebird, and I wrote a treble and a bass clef and put the notes on it and put the lyrics in between the two. And I never wrote again until after my first divorce when I was in, uh, after college. And after the divorce, I'd come back to Columbia, Missouri. I was teaching school. And this one day, I was over at the Heidelberg. That was a little restaurant uh, right in the middle of Columbia, and across the street was a park. And a bunch of us were standing in the park singing with the Ozark Mountain Daredevils. They
Hmm.
were a big group at the time,
Yeah,
but they're
yeah.
from Missouri. And then when that was over, I was walking home. This is I was just watching the cracks go by on the sidewalk, and all of a sudden I remembered, oh, that's right. I'm really depressed because I'm getting divorced. But wait a minute. I was so happy. What was I doing? Oh, I was singing songs. I went home, and when I got in my house, I wrote two songs. And that was the beginning of me writing songs all the time.
So was it just like that, just that exciting? Just wow, this came from me, and
That's what did. And then right after I started writing songs, I thought, oh, this is good. I want to be in the music business. So my brother and his friend Blake, they had a duo, and they were playing in Kansas City that next weekend. And I said, Joey, Joe was my brother. I said,
yeah.
I want to go be your manager. And he goes, okay, Jan. He gave me the address. And I came there, and my brother happened to get laryngitis. And he turned to me and he said, Jan, I can't sing. Get up on stage and play some songs. And I was like, oh, okay. So he gave me a guitar and I got up there, and I'd never played in front of people. So I just played a song. And when I was done, it was like an explosion. I opened my eyes
Hmm.
and it was like slow motion. Everybody was clapping. And I thought, oh, wow. And then I put my head down and I said, here's another one. And I played another one. And when I got off the stage, the manager came up and said, that was pretty good. You want to play here next week? And I was so shocked. I said, well, let me go check my book. And I went and opened my address book, and my knees were knocking. And then I went
Yeah.
back to him and I said, I believe I can. And he goes, okay. So he booked me, and I practiced every day that week. And I practiced so much, my fingers were bloody. I had to put band-aids on the ends of my fingers. And when I played that gig the next week, I had band-aids on my fingers. But
Wow.
that got me hooked on, and then I started getting jobs in Columbia, Missouri, singing and playing. And Lee Ruth, this guy, told me he was a tall guy that wore these spectacles, and he had red hair and a red beard. He was like the carrot of a man. And he looked down at me one day and said, I hear you write a lot of songs. You should enter something in the American Song Festival. You can find it in Rolling Stone magazine. So I did, and I entered, and they were terrible songs that I entered that I first wrote. And I got this pamphlet back. It said, if you write songs, you need to go to a publisher in New York, LA, or Nashville. And I
Hmm.
was like, ah. So I started going to Nashville. And then I met the second ex husband. I was flying with Eastern after I had been teaching school for a few years. And the ex husband was in Atlanta, where I was based. And we moved to Nashville. And that's when I started writing full time. And in the beginning, I was writing in a vault, a vault at Soundstage Studios.
Hmm.
And sometimes I would write in the closet over at Tree Publishing. And I just kept writing. I started getting cuts, and that's when I took off. I all I knew to do was write songs. I just loved to write, and I still do today. I write almost every day, and I play gigs a lot of nights.